The acquisition of their own cottage was meant to herald the dawn of a new, joyous chapter. However, the housewarming celebration took a decidedly unexpected turn. The in-laws arrived not merely with gifts, but with an entire truckload of belongings. "These are our son's rooms, after all. Joint property," the mother-in-law chirped with delight, already envisioning herself as the undisputed mistress of the household. "So, we'll all be living together now, and we'll give your little apartment to Lenka." Welcome, dear listeners. It's a pleasure to greet you on my channel. I'm excited to present a compelling new narrative. Enjoy the story. Alla Sergeyevna gazed at the truck parked beside the brand new cottage, a fiery anger brewing within her. 3 months prior, she had inherited a substantial sum from Aunt Nina, the only relative who had consistently supported her. Aunt Nina had bequeathed her a 3-bedroom apartment in the city center, which Alla promptly sold. The proceeds were sufficient to purchase this suburban cottage, a charming 2-story house with an attic, a small garden, and a garage. She had meticulously handled all the paperwork, ensuring everything was registered solely in her name. Her husband Kirill had shown little interest in the specifics, and Alla had not felt the need to involve him. After all, it was an inheritance, her personal property. Alla held the position of chief accountant at a construction firm, earning a respectable approximately $150,000. She possessed a knack for saving and meticulous financial planning. Over their 10 years of marriage, she had learned the hard lesson of relying solely on herself. Kirill worked as a manager at a car dealership, earning around $80,000. But a significant portion of that income was directed towards his parents, sometimes for his mother, Olga Viktorovna's, medication, other times for his father, Viktor Stepanovich's, car or his sister Lena's various needs. Alla remained silent enduring the situation, accumulating both resentment and funds in her private account. When she announced her purchase of the house, Kirill reacted with childlike elation. He immediately contacted his parents, enthusiastically describing the magnificent cottage, its numerous rooms, and the scenic views. Alla observed the spark in his eyes, sensing he was already formulating a plan, yet she remained quiet, waiting. And so, today was the housewarming. She had prepared a lavish table and invited her parents, Kirill's parents, and a few friends. Everything was proceeding beautifully until a truck rumbled into the yard. Viktor Stepanovich was at the wheel, with Olga Viktorovna beside him, and the truck bed was overflowing with boxes, bags, and old furniture. Alla stepped onto the porch. Her father-in-law had already begun unloading the items, while her mother-in-law, clad in her signature floral dress and sporting a triumphant smile, approached her. "Alochka, darling, we decided to surprise you." Olga Viktorovna embraced her daughter-in-law as if they were the dearest of friends, though over the past 10 years she had never addressed Alla by anything other than "your wife." "We're moving in with you. After all, this is our son's house, joint property. We'll give your little apartment to Lenka." Kirill stood nearby, smiling blankly like a simpleton. Alla looked at him, then at her mother-in-law, then at the truck and the piled boxes. And then she laughed. She laughed heartily, genuinely, with such heartfelt mirth that tears welled in her eyes. Olga Viktorovna looked taken aback. "What are you so happy about, dear?" "I'm delighted by your audacity, Olga Viktorovna," Alla replied, wiping away her tears. "It seems the time has come to share some rather unpleasant news. This house is mine, and mine alone. I purchased it with funds inherited from my aunt. Kirill had absolutely no involvement in the acquisition. My name is the only one on the legal documents." A profound silence fell. Even the guests who had emerged to witness the unfolding drama fell silent. Viktor Stepanovich froze, a box still in his hands. Olga Viktorovna opened her mouth, but no words emerged. Kirill was the first to recover. "Alla, what are you talking about? Everything is communal in marriage." "Inheritance is personal property," Alla stated calmly. Perhaps you should consult the family code. Article 36 clearly stipulates that property acquired by one spouse as a gift or through inheritance is their sole possession. I sold my aunt's apartment and bought this house with my own money, in my own name. You've completely lost your mind. Olga Viktorovna's face flushed crimson. This is a family home. Are you trying to kick us out? I did not invite you to move in, Alla countered, crossing her arms. You arrived unannounced, with a truck, without even asking. And you intended to give your apartment to Lena? What an interesting division of property, wouldn't you agree? A new and spacious home for yourselves, a familiar and tested one for your daughter, and a shared life with us as our contribution. Kirill, her mother-in-law shrieked. Are you hearing what she's saying? Kirill turned pale, clearly blindsided by this turn of events. He approached his wife, attempting to take her hand, but Alla pulled away. We will discuss this at home, he hissed. At our home, Alla replied, looking him directly in the eye. If you wish to discuss it within my home, by all means, but your parents will not be living here. Viktor Stepanovich placed the box back into the truck. He was a quiet man, accustomed to his wife making all the decisions, but even he understood the gravity of the situation. Perhaps we were wrong to go through with this, Olya, he murmured. Shut up, his wife snapped at him. Alochka, you understand, I didn't mean any harm. I just thought that with a bigger house, there would be more space. We'll help you with the chores, with the grandchildren when they arrive. There will be no grandchildren, Alla stated flatly, at least not from Kirill. I filed for divorce a week ago. The announcement struck like a bomb. Kirill grew even paler. What are you saying? I'm tired, Kirill. I'm tired of supporting not only you, but your entire family. And I'm tired of you rushing off with money every time your mother calls. I'm tired of Lena thinking it's acceptable to borrow from us and never repay. For 10 years, I was convenient. No more. Olga Viktorovna clutched her chest. Oh, I feel faint. Is there a doctor here? Alla gestured towards one of her guests. Igor Valerievich, would you please check on my mother-in-law? The doctor, an elderly gentleman with kind eyes, approached and felt her pulse. Everything is normal, Olga Viktorovna. Your blood pressure is stable. Please don't pretend. Her mother-in-law visibly deflated. Viktor Stepanovich was already climbing into the truck's cabin. Kirill darted between his wife and mother, utterly lost. Alla, please, let's talk rationally, he pleaded. I didn't know they were planning to move in. Honestly, I didn't. Alla shook her head. Your eyes lit up when I mentioned the house. You called them immediately, described everything. Do you think I didn't hear you telling your mother? Now, there's enough room for everyone. You planned this from the very beginning. Kirill lowered his gaze. Arguing was futile. The guests gradually departed. The housewarming had devolved into a disaster. Olga Viktorovna and Viktor Stepanovich left in their truck, having unloaded nothing. Kirill remained, sitting in the kitchen, drinking vodka straight from the bottle. Did you really file for divorce? He asked, as Alla entered to collect the dishes. Yes, because of the money, because of the disrespect. Alla sat down opposite him. You never asked what I wanted. You simply acted according to what was convenient for you and your parents. I was a source of money and free labor. Cook, clean, laundry, and support everyone. I didn't realize you were struggling so much. You never thought about it at all. Kirill left for his parents that very night. Alla remained alone in her new home. It was quiet, peaceful, and incredibly liberating. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Kirill attempted to claim a share of the house, hiring a lawyer, but was quickly informed that inherited property is not subject to division. Alla didn't even smile when Kirill emerged from the courtroom with a crestfallen expression. She was indifferent. Olga Viktorovna called several times, attempting to elicit sympathy, lamenting Kirill's suffering and her own sleepless nights. Alla listened in silence and then simply blocked the number. Lena, Kirill's younger sister, married and indeed moved into her parents' apartment. However, 6 months later, her husband Gennady, unable to tolerate the constant presence of his in-laws, filed for divorce. Lena found herself back with her 2 children, jobless, and living with her parents. Olga Viktorovna complained to anyone who would listen, but no one could help. A year later, Kirill remarried a colleague, a young saleswoman who had no concept of financial management and doted on his mother. Olga Viktorovna was thrilled. Alla learned of this incidentally through social media and simply shrugged. 2 years later, a new man entered Alla's life, Igor Valerievich, the very doctor who had exposed her mother-in-law at the housewarming. He was a widower, calm and intelligent. He didn't demand or pressure. He was simply there. They married quietly, without ostentatious celebrations. Alla wore a simple white dress. He wore a suit. They signed the papers and had a quiet dinner for 2 at a restaurant. "Are you happy?" Igor asked when they returned home. "Yes," Alla replied. And it was the truth. A year later, they welcomed a daughter. Little Nina, named in honor of the aunt who had given Alla the chance for a new life. Igor was a wonderful father, rising in the nights, changing diapers, singing lullabies. Alla watched him, scarcely believing such happiness was possible. One day, while strolling through the park with the baby stroller, she encountered Kirill. He looked older, gaunt, his eyes reflecting weariness. His young wife, visibly pregnant, walked beside him, followed by Olga Viktorovna, who was vociferously recounting something. "Hello," Kirill said. "Hello," Alla replied. He peered into the stroller, seeing the sleeping Nina. "She's beautiful," he murmured. "Thank you." They stood in awkward silence. Olga Viktorovna noticed Alla, pursed her lips, and ostentatiously turned away. Kirill's wife looked on with curiosity. "Well, goodbye," Kirill said and continued on his way. Alla watched them go. There was no anger, no resentment, only a faint regret for the years wasted, for not having acted sooner. When Nina turned 3, Alla opened her own accounting agency. Igor supported her, assisting with the finances. The business flourished. Clients came in one after another, recommending her to friends. Within 2 years, she managed a staff of 5 employees and was contemplating expansion. The house, which was supposed to be a curse of shared living with her in-laws, had transformed into their family sanctuary. Alla cultivated a vibrant flower garden. Igor built a children's playground. Nina grew into a joyful child, surrounded by love. One evening, as they sat on the veranda sipping tea, Alla said, "You know, I'm grateful for that whole situation with the truck and the housewarming." "Why?" Igor asked, surprised. "Because it was the final straw. I might have continued to tolerate it for much longer, accumulating grudges, destroying myself. But this way, everything happened quickly and decisively. They exposed the festering wound themselves." Igor smiled and kissed her temple. "It's a good thing you laughed then instead of crying." "Tears would have been a sign of weakness." Alla shook her head. "And I was tired of being weak." She saw Kirill a few more times, always from a distance. He continued to live with his parents. His wife had given birth to 2 children and quickly transformed into a harried housewife. Olga Viktorovna still commanded everyone. Viktor Stepanovich remained silent. Lena never managed to establish her personal life, working as a sales assistant. Her children grew up under their grandmother's supervision. Alla felt no schadenfreude. She simply didn't care. Her life had taken a different path, one filled with light, tranquility, and purpose. When Nina turned 5, the family relocated to another city. Igor had been offered the position of department head at a prominent clinic. Alla seamlessly transitioned her business online. The house sold quickly and profitably. The new owners were a young couple without relatives, yearning for children. "May this house bring you happiness," Alla said, handing over the keys. "Thank you," the young woman smiled. "Did it bring you happiness?" "It did," Alla nodded. It taught me to stand up for myself. In their new city, they purchased an apartment in a quiet neighborhood. Nina enrolled in a reputable kindergarten. Igor immersed himself in his work. Alla finally exhaled. Sometimes, in the evenings, she would recall that day, the truck, the boxes, her mother-in-law's gleeful face, Kirill's smile. Each time, she would smile, for it was the day of her liberation. 10 years had passed since that housewarming. Alla occasionally browsed social media to see what had become of her former acquaintances. Kirill had divorced his second wife and lived alone, still working at the same auto service. Olga Viktorovna had passed away from a stroke. Viktor Stepanovich lived out his remaining days in a nursing home. His children could not agree on who would care for him. Lena remarried for the third time and moved to the countryside. Alla closed the page. Nina was doing her homework at the table. Igor was engrossed in a medical journal, a typical evening for an ordinary, happy family. "Mom, are we going anywhere for the summer?" Nina asked. "Yes, we are. Do you want to go to the sea?" "Yes. Can I sunbathe and swim with Dad?" "Of course you can." Alla walked to the window. Beyond it lay the city, its lights, her life, the life she had chosen herself. And that choice had begun the moment she had laughed in her mother-in-law's face and had not been afraid to speak the truth. Sometimes a single moment of courage changes everything, and thank goodness she found the strength for that 1 minute.